Good day, everybody. Good morning, Grand Rising. I hope you guys are doing fine. Let's see. Oh.
Welcome to series 2, right?
Right.
About to get some good nuggets. So we would like to welcome everyone that is here for series 2 of the social media marketing ads for business. This course, of course, is led by our very own, excuse me, Emmanuel Mincy, the director of the Guap Foundation for Marketing. And let me tell you, season 1 had so many nuggets in it. I hope that you all that are watching the replay, we're going to give you a second to grab your paper and your pen and your water, because you're definitely going to need it. I'm knowing that there's going to be a whole lot more nuggets than this one that's about to be presented before us. So with no further ado, let's get it with the man himself. Emmanuel, I hand it over to you. Again, I am Lovey Bradley. I am the secretary on the foundation. I don't believe that I said that. I'm the secretary of the foundation. So I'm going to sit back, grab my pen, my paper, and be the student. Thank you, Emmanuel, for your time, your dedication, and this series.
Appreciate the introduction. Like she said, we did cover a lot in week 1. It's basically this first part is going to be a recap of week 1. But after that, we're going to go into what do you actually do once you start acquiring attention? What do you start doing once those ads you was running for awareness start to actually pay off? What does it look like? What are you supposed to keep in mind? And what's the next step in that journey? So if you remember, week 1, let me make sure I got the ability to share the screen. Lovey, can you give me a share screen ability? But if you guys remember, in week 1, we went over how to use $60 a month to really kind of start your ads campaign on Facebook and Instagram, and how to use that to start attracting attention to your page at about $2 a day, opposed to, bigger budgets, about $1,000 a month, $3,000 a month, $50,000 a month. So this is really just kind of, it allows you to get your feet wet without wasting too much money. It allows you to gain experience, and it also allows you to still accumulate results as far as, getting your brand in front of people who have never seen it before. So this week, again, we're going to follow up with that and kind of feed into what happens after you start getting attention on your page. That's the second while I pull the slide up for you all. Here we go. Hold on, let me press pause real quick. I'm having trouble. Now, as I was saying earlier, we're gonna go through a quick recap of what we went over last week. Just keep it fresh. You're gonna need to remember the mentality. You're gonna need to remember why you started running ads in the first place before moving on to how to start gauging your engagement, how to measure what you're looking for, and kind of looking at how to measure your progress with these ads. Now, like I said, last week we focused on awareness using $60 a month to generate an awareness campaign. So you'd be creating short form content. By short form content, I mean content that's, between 15 to 45, 60 seconds at the most. And what you're doing is you're creating content that's going to get the attention of your ideal consumer base. Little reels, if you're not familiar with reels, they're like TikToks, but on Instagram and Facebook. And so what you were using that for is you were turning those into an ads and targeting a specific consumer base. I think last week we talked about the numbers being around between 50 to 150,000 people, no more than 150,000 people, because you're only using $2 a day. In fact, the smaller you can get, the better. Me personally, I like to keep it underneath 50. I usually won't use a budgeted ad campaign like that unless I'm targeting a local area or if I'm targeting my followers specifically. But little progress is better than no progress, especially when you're running that over 90 days. So that was another tip from last week, is don't run any of these budgeted campaigns for less than 90 days. So when you're doing this, your whole goal is getting your content, your brand, your product in front of people who haven't seen it before. You want new eyes. You want to be introduced as your first introduction to people. So what I want you guys to start doing is thinking of ad campaigns or any content creation campaign in general as a relationship building exercise. When you first meet somebody, you're not going to ask them to marry you off the bat. I mean, you can, but it's kind of odd. You want to build up you want to establish that relationship. You talk to them. If you guys vibe, eventually you get the number, you go on a date, you go on multiple dates. There's the parental stage, and you're married, or however it may go for you. But usually you're not going to ask somebody to marry you on the first date. So with content-focused strategies, you're using content to introduce your brand to people, but you're not asking them for any purchases. You're not asking them to take any actions off the bat. And that's why you're able to get results with $2 a day using the awareness campaign, because you're entertaining people first. Before you force yourself to introduce them, you're getting their attention just by using the content that you've already created or the content that you will create. But you're not asking them to take any actions, to make any purchases. You're just saying, hey, look at my brand. Right? So when you create this campaign, you want to remember what your goal is. What was the reason that you created the campaign? How are you going to measure that goal? So with the awareness campaign, we were measuring it in terms of video views or through plays. Through plays being video views of 15 seconds or more. I always advise, when you create an awareness campaign, you use short form videos. The reason why I measure in through plays is because, you have most people have an attention span of 2 to 3 seconds. When they watch 15 seconds, at least at a subconscious level, they know they're interested. That account is interested, whoever it may be is interested, because they sat there and watched 15 seconds of what it created. Now, again, this is only 15 seconds, but this is enough to get their attention. Maybe it's the sauce of whatever podcast it was. Maybe it's the sauce of the results from your product. It's you're thinking about how to entertain the customer right now, potential customer. You're thinking about how to introduce them to your brand through entertainment. So when you measure in through plays, you're like, okay, well, I know that somebody watched at least 15 seconds of my video, which again is 13 seconds longer than the average attention span, right? So that's how you're measuring your goal. If your goal is to get more attention, you're measuring it using video views or in post engagements. Now, the utility is the purpose of the content. When you create the content for the ad campaign, you want to create it knowing this isn't to sell. This is just to push my brand. So again, your content's not going to be talking about making a purchase or signing up for any newsletter, email, text list, et cetera, et cetera. Your content will be purely to entertain and educate. edutate. Edutate. There's a combination of that word. I forgot it. There's a great combination. Edutainment. There we go. So that's the second thing you want to remember is that the utility, the reason why you're creating the content in this case is to educate and make them aware of your brand simultaneously. You're not selling anything though. No call to action. I got to keep repeating that so that you understand the importance of establishing a relationship where you're not asking somebody for something on the internet. Audience-wise, you always want to remember who your audience is that you're targeting. The more you know about your audience, the easier it is to run these ads. It's not going to be so much about the location base. It's going to be more about what their interest is, what their hobbies are. Are they interested? Is your audience interested in vegan food, health, fitness, working out, swimming? Are they college-based? Do they only have high school diplomas? What school do they go to? Do they go to a Black school? Do they go to FSU? Are you only targeting FSU students? Are you only targeting people who do housing development work? Facebook's ad campaigns or their audience managers allow you to kind of cipher out your audience based on their interests. You're able to put in these little keywords and behaviors that your audience may have and target them based on those actions that they've taken. You know, your phone tracks everything you do. There's no getting away from it right now. Facebook tracks everything your phone tracks. So these parameters and these insights that you're able to put into play, they allow you to define who you want to see or who do you want, or they allow you to define who you want to see your ads. Of course, if you remember, we went through this last week, but here's just an example of them. This one targeted people who work in the entertainment, sports, and media arts industries in Atlanta. I also targeted people who liked hip hop and who enjoy rapping, because the content was about me making a conversation piece about what the industry doesn't want or something. A content piece that was created specifically for the engagement, the debate, the tenacity of the music industry, or tenacity of underground artists who dislike the music industry's mainstream. So when you create the content, you always want to think about what it's for and the purpose behind it. And when you're targeting your audience, you always want to think about who you want to react to your content. Who do you want to get your product in front of? Why do you want them to react? Positioning. Now, positioning is what we're going to get into today. When you're creating an awareness campaign, getting their attention is the first goal. But what happens after you get their attention with these 15-second pieces of content and whatnot? You're sending out really short form content. Yeah, you get their attention, but how do you retain their attention? How do you push them from being some people who saw something they liked to becoming those consumers? What does that path look like? What does that journey look like? So again, you always got to remember your goal, your utility, your audience, and your positioning. Positioning is what we're going to get into right now. So this right here is called the customer value journey. It's not something I made up, not by any means. It's something that's been around for a long time, a very long time. It's how we focus on where our content and where our campaigns will push our consumers and who we're actually targeting within our consumer journey. These people have no idea you exist. So actually, today, let me go ahead and say we're going to be talking about these two areas. This is what we covered last week. This week, we're going to cover how to utilize this area right here and how to push people from the awareness stage into the engagement area using ads. Still sticking within that budget. Well, a little bit over that budget because you've already spent $60 on the awareness campaign. Sorry, I had a pop-up on my screen. The ads that you've ran in the awareness campaign, at this point, let's assume that you've been running those ads for 90 days. While those ads were running, they were introducing your product to people who had never heard of you. They were getting your content in front of new eyes, getting your brand in front of new eyes, and this is these people over here. as they watched that content, they were made aware of your company's existence. They were made aware of the fact that you had a solution to their problem and that your brand, for some reason, resonated with them. We don't know the reason it resonated with them yet, assuming it's the content, but we know that your content kept their attention for 15 seconds. So whoever you're targeting, now you need to make sure that they're not familiar, but that they're actually interested in what your brand represents, what you got going on, the products you're pushing. So when you come to this stage right here and you want to bring people from just hearing about your brand to actually being, to actually choosing to understand it, choosing to make the purchase, or choosing to start looking more into it, you're basically educating them now. Here, the content's going to be longer, about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. You're not trying to shoot people with a real, not shoot people, goodness, I gotta definitely use some different diction. You're not targeting people with short form content. You're targeting them with education about your brand. Here, you can take the time to create content that may be around the lines of, this is the brand story, this is what the product's about. Or if you're coming out with maybe a different product explaining that, if you're coming out with a project talking about that. But here you're able to go more in depth, because here you want to start to funnel out the people who aren't really planning on staying around. So if my content is 3 minutes and the average attention span is 2 seconds, then at this point, if they're staying for more than 2 seconds and they're watching, 1 minute and 50, then I know that they were pretty interested in what I was teaching them. Show y'all how to do that. Where did it just go? So earlier, we talked about, paying attention to the amount of, or the percentage watching the video when you're targeting somebody new. So now in this case, since our videos are now going to be about 3 minutes long, again, we're using 3-minute videos, longer pieces of content, carousels even. We wouldn't be targeting people who watch 15 seconds of our video. We'd be targeting people who are watching, at least 50% of that video, 75% of that video, 95%. Because we know the longer they watch, the more interested they are in at least the information we're giving them. Again, this is about building that relationship. We met somebody we're attracted to. We start having a conversation, after we introduce ourselves, we start having a conversation, getting to know more about each other. Where are you from? What are you aiming for? Where your parents from? Everything, those questions. So in this area of our date life, again, we're getting to know our consumers. This is part of building that relationship. If you did the homework from last week, then when you come to your audience, you need to know what they're reading, the people they're following, the type of content they're used to consuming, the behavior patterns and everything. Like I said, the more you know your audience, the easier this is, or the more simple it is. Or the simpler it is, my apologies. Because then you're able to create content that applies to them. You're able to create content that really resonates with who they want to become. The purpose of your product is to get them from where they are and to enhance their life in some way. So my advice for the content in this area right here, testimonials, education about product, education about product ingredients, the brand story of the company, BTS, some daily life stuff, some behind the scenes of how, if you've got a brick and mortar, behind the scenes of what it looks like on the inside. At this point, you really want to get in the mindset of creating this visual experience for your consumer. So whether you're entertaining them, educating them, you're still focused on funneling them from the awareness stage down to the engagement stage. Let's head back to this chart. Again, the purpose of this part of the campaign is to funnel the audience that you already have into the engagement stage over here. Let me see if I have a picture of a funnel. I love that word, but I'm not sure if I have. Nope, I did not download a picture of a funnel. Well, I'm sure we all know what a funnel looks like. So for those of us who aren't familiar with the term funnel, again, the purpose of a funnel is, it starts off with a wide mouth, and as it goes lower into the tool, into the object, it gets skinnier and smaller until it exits out through a smaller feed at the bottom. That's what you want your consumers to do. You want to start with a bunch, but you want that bunch to kind of funnel itself out until you only have people who are most likely to purchase, most likely to become long-term consumers. And let's go ahead and just look at the rest of the map. Again, we're going to be talking about awareness and engagement over here. Once people are ready to engage, once you've got a crowd of people who've been engaging with the product, they're more likely to subscribe or convert. Subscription, some of us look at becoming followers as subscribers, but in reality, it's when you take people off of social media and into some type of list, like an email list, phone call list, those are your subscribers. When those subscribers make their first purchase, that's a conversion. That's your first time conversion people. After they make their first purchase, you want to give them more love, engage with them a little bit more. It's the whole excitement stage, because at this point, they've made the first purchase. They're warm, they're part of your consumer family now. And you want to take as many of those consumers and turn them into those raving lunatics. Well, probably shouldn't say raving lunatics, just say returning consumers. But now, people who are going to make larger purchases, people who are going to make more frequent purchases, that 10% of your 100%, that 10% who's going to be there for longer than just one purchase. But that all starts with finding them and educating them. These right here are your first two steps. And so what this budget does is it introduces your product to them, and then it introduces your brand to them, and then educates them on the brand, right? Let's see. So earlier for awareness, we said when we talked about the goals for awareness, we talked about what we were measuring that stage by. For awareness, we were measuring it by video views and 3-second percentages, or 15-second video views. For the engagement stage, we want to only target people who have watched the first video, right? Otherwise, it's not a funnel. We don't want anybody watching that second video unless they've watched that first video. Basically, you have to qualify to be educated. If you didn't watch 15 seconds of that video, then you don't deserve to watch the full 3 minutes or the content that comes next in that funnel. And that's how we start, creating a funnel that only allows people who are taking the actions we want to take to come through or to fall through those cracks. This way, you're not spending money on people who aren't interested or trying to keep people who aren't interested in the funnel. You're only targeting the people who are watching the first video and qualifying themselves by watching enough of the second. Show you what that looks like. Oops. Skipped over that part. So here you're able to include the audience, and then you're able to exclude the audience. So this is how you really start to set up this system. You include only the people who took the actions that you wanted. You exclude everybody else. It gets a little complicated as you get further in, but using, again, you're coming off the back of the budget that you use, that $60 budget, to start building up an audience. The good thing about the the education section is that you're not going to be using as much money to entertain people who have already seen your content before. You're not trying to find people who are new. You're only trying to get back in front of the people who have just seen those 15 seconds. So this allows you to use a budget of about $1 a day at, even at the most. Sometimes that full dollar won't be spent because there's not enough people in that funnel to target. So this helps to keep the cost down, because what you're doing is, again, you're finding people who are interested. They watch a certain amount of the video, they go to the second layer. But that second layer is only sending out more content to people who have watched a certain amount of the first. So if I've got about 60,000 people, 20,000 of them watch 15 seconds, that's great. Out of that 20,000 people, maybe only 10,000 of them are gonna watch 1:50 seconds of this next video. That's fine, because that money I spent won't try to reach the people who haven't qualified themselves. This way, it's all about saving the money and making your money go the furthest. Because while you're also not spending as large of a ad spend budget as a lot of other companies or a lot of larger companies, your audience and your niche, your consumer base is going to be more specific. And it's also going to be targeting people who are taking the actions that you want to within a group of people who have taken the actions that you want to. So essentially, you will end up, where did it go? You're going to end up with people in multiple groups at the same time. And this is going to help you keep track of where those consumers are and what stage they're at. So you'll end up with some who are in the awareness campaigns, you'll end up with fewer who are in the engagement area, but you'll end up with them there at the same time. So when you create content, you want to be able to create content that's going to be evergreen and continue to funnel people through this section over here, so that it starts to work like a system. While you've got new people coming in, you've still got a system that's educating them while they go further down your consumer journey before they start to subscribe to your email list or make their first purchase. So a lot of times we don't focus on the experience provided to our consumers before we ask them for a purchase. That's my whole thing with this. You got to treat the consumers like it's a relationship. Again, you've just met someone, you're having those conversations. Where are you from? What are you about? When you subscribe to them is when they get your number. If you want to keep the conversation going, you want to exchange numbers or contact information. Prior to that, Again, you're learning about each other. What's your eating habits? Oh, this one might not work out. Yeah, why not? She ate steak, bro. Awareness, you meet somebody again. So start thinking of your consumer relationship like a real relationship, and you'll start to understand what type of experiences the consumer wants for you to build that credibility, for you to build that trust with them through the digital screen. It's already hard enough for us to have that one-on-one relationship through computers and through phones. But when you're creating content that genuinely engages with them, that helps them get from where they are to where they're trying to be, especially, depending on your product, you build up that credibility, you build up that trust, that status, and it just creates a bond. So even if they don't subscribe, they're still going to end up talking about the experience you gave them. And again, you always want to focus on people's subconscious as well, or the information you're tracking is their subconscious habits. So again, they don't know that you're targeting them because it's 15 seconds. They don't know that they're being targeted because they watch a certain amount of the video. Well, actually, it's 2022. We might know a little bit more about why they're being targeted. Still, when they usher certain words and your words are what's targeting them, this is how you start to utilize Facebook's algorithm and Facebook's ability to market for your company. Because Facebook's not going anywhere again. No time soon. They've got one of the most advanced ad systems in the world. I think their Facebook Marketplace is still number one. And with their attempts to jump into virtual reality, they have a virtual reality ad marketing platform. If I wanted to target people with virtual reality gifts, e-com, I'd be able to do that now. Matter of fact, if I wanted to target people who use virtual reality, I'd be able to target them by people who are using their headgear, people who are using an Apple Droid. The more you know about your audience, the more information you're going to get from this stage right here. Because you're not just targeting on what video they're watching or how long they're watching a video. You're also targeting, paying attention to what videos they're watching the most. Because it also gives you the ability to create more of those same videos. But once you have enough data, you're able to mimic the audience here so that it costs less to find the same people who would take those actions at this step over here. You're able to mimic that audience so that those are the type of people coming in through this first step, resulting in more of them coming in to the second step. And once the system starts working, you're basically going in and, I want to say, updating this audience preference. But once, again, just to recap what we've gone over so far, once the audience knows of your brand, this next stage is about educating them, building that credibility. So in this part, you're really going to want to know what your brand stands for, because the content you're going to create around is just going to support your brand. It's going to support your product before you ever ask them to make any purchases. Again, these first 2 weeks, nothing about purchases, no call to actions. Which is why I always advise a 90-day campaign when you're doing these things on a budget. So total wise, if you're running an awareness campaign and an engagement campaign, you would be at about $90 a month right now. And that's only if the engagement campaign is spending the full $1 a day. So over 3 months, you would probably spend 90, 180, 27, $270. And accruing wise, let's just use one of the, what I have this. So you would end up with about 1,900 through plays after about $60. Out of those 1,900 through plays, if I'm retargeting somebody, I might get about 700 people in that second category, in that engagement category, who are willing to watch a full 3 minutes of that video. But that content would be content that supports the first video. So if my first 15-second video was something about me making fun of the entertainment industry, my second video, my 3-minute video would be, utilizing, or would be information about how to utilize some of the tactics I found in the entertainment industry. It's like, yeah, there's a joke, but here's also why you should continue to pay attention to this information. Here's the real stuff. So if I got your attention because I made fun of the entertainment industry, and I keep your attention because you're interested in what I'm going on, the information I'm giving away for the entertainment industry, then that lets me know that you're my ideal consumer, or you're at least part of my ideal community, because I know you're interested in what I'm talking about. There's an ROI in everything you do. Attention is an ROI, income is an ROI, and education is an ROI. In this case, the more attention you get, the larger the ROI is. And that is going to, that's going to be a recap for the day. Not a recap, that's going to be it for the day then. That is going to be all for today. Any questions thus far?
So you're using some software, Emmanuel, that has you moving through these different phases of the campaign, or Facebook already has all of this set up so that you're moving through the different funnel stages?
But when you set up the ads on Facebook, you're going to set them up so that those ads that you create move people through these phases of the campaign. So that's a good question. One of the things I should have said is that when you're going to create the campaign for your consumers. You're going to use Facebook ads as a tool to move them through this campaign. So you'll be able to understand what stage you're at based on the parameters that you set.
Got it.
So next time, I think what I'll write in some examples of the parameters that people can measure by as well. So I really wanted to just introduce the funnel and the journey itself. The next time we'll get more specific and talk about those measurements as well. And it's the same thing with YouTube as well. TikTok, people use different sites for different reasons. YouTube, we use it a lot for the awareness campaign because they do have a larger reach and more people willing to watch longer form content. But YouTube's retargeting content, or what's called their engagement stage, isn't as, I don't want to say trackable as Facebook's is, but it's still just as good. So on Facebook, where I might be able to track, the amount of time watched by a single account, with YouTube, I'm just only able to target people who have seen the video and just hope that it reaches them, which it usually does. But I'm not able to get any more specific than that. But it all just has to be part of the consumer journey that you've created for your customer. You want to understand where they're at after they meet you, where they're at before they start to make their first purchase, when they start to consider becoming part of your consumer base. What are those decisions? What might be the objections that they have that keeps them from making those purchases or making that step? So sometimes, you may want to work backwards and be like, okay, well, if my goal is to get them to join my text list, what type of content do I need to educate them about for them to get to the point where they feel confident enough that I'm providing enough value for them to want to be part of my community? And then you might want to think, okay, well, I have the community content. What do I need to do to introduce people to the community? How do I get in front of them for the first time? What type of people do we really want inside of this community? So that's kind of you kind of create that campaign and use software to fulfill those needs to push them through the funnel or the journey. You can use funnel and journey simultaneously.
Do we have homework this week?
Yes. Yes, you do have homework this week. This week's homework, you've got 2 items on your agenda for your task list. So when you guys watch the replay, you need to do 2 tasks before you go into the next week's replay. And we've got about 2 weeks before the next class, I believe. Yeah, about 2 weeks. So in those 2 weeks, you need to come up with content ideas that would help to educate your potential consumer once they reach the engagement stage. And then you need to come up with content ideas that would attract your consumer to your brand. No ideas are bad ideas. Actually, no idea is a bad idea, but no ideas are bad ideas. There we go. I like that. I'm gonna write that down. Y'all taught me something. Nice. And then for the second thing, or for the second task on the homework, is to think about your consumer. Write down 10 pages that they would be on, and then come up with a name for that audience member. Let's call them audience. Go through social, find 10 pages that your audience would be on, and write a name for that audience member. 2 names. When you name your audience member, then you know your audience member. You know your consumer. You name them Kevin, Brittany, Jameson, Stewart, just not Bradley. Bradley's not too fun for me. But yes, those are the 2 homework tasks. Think of content for your awareness stage and your engagement stage. So content that's 15 seconds long, and then content that's 3 minutes long. And the second task is to think of your audience member, your consumer. Find 10 pages that they would be on and give them a name. When y'all watch the replay, drop the homework in the comments section. And that was a little shorter than last week, so you guys have time to rewatch last week's as well. Now, next week's, we're going to be talking about a subscription stage. So this is why it's going to be important to know who your audience is, because when it comes to subscription, no matter how good your ad is, you have to have credible copy. And if you don't know what copy is, or copywriting is, you're going to learn about that next week or on our next class. But this is where you start to pull people off of social media. This is where you start to own your own data. All of this has been about introducing your brand, understanding your audience, engaging with your audience. What you really want at the end of the day is to own that audience. This is data, not them, but to own their information. Because you can't own social media, but you can own your own information. And that way you're able to utilize the information. But if you don't know your audience, then you don't know why they're here. You don't know how to talk to them, why they're enjoying your product over your competition's product. So do those 2. You got to do it.
I have a question.
Yes.
So a lot of the things, the information that I share is an overlap with, let's say, somebody who's more well-known, who's out there, who has a humongous audience. And I'll use Dr. Joe Dispenza for an example. So when I'm looking for my audience, would I include his audience? Because maybe they're already there or more advanced. I might exclude them, but I know they're interested in the topic. So that's my question. Or am I looking for a certain level of client or just people who are interested in the topic?
You're looking for people who are interested in the topic. So it doesn't matter what level they are. If they have a following or if they can be considered your competition, then that's fine. What you want to do is you want to have those pages marked down so you're able to see not just the trends, but also how the consumers are responding to them. And you're also going to end up wanting to get in the habit of commenting on their pages. Because even with ads, it's a paid reach, it's a paid strategy. Nothing's going to replace our organic strategy and our organic grind. So when you have those 10 pages that you're able to look at daily, you're able to go to daily, you really get familiar with your audience and what they're talking about. So when it comes to, looking at the topics that you need to insert into these audience finders and these audience targeters, you're more familiar with those phrases and those keywords, and what might be trending now. And the better you know that, the easier it is to attract them to your page with your ad.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, if we don't have any other questions or comments, we can close out for today. Thank you again for such insightful information, and just a reminder for those listening that the class session is scheduled for the second and the third Thursday. Emmanuel, you might want to look at your calendar. What, third Thursday? I'm not sure. Saturday. I'm sorry, what's Thursday? Saturdays. That's Thanksgiving weekend. So of November, the third weekend. So we'll have to look and see if that will be a class session or not.
Turkey and learning, we'll see.
Right.
We'll see.
Second and third Saturdays, October and November. And this is our final session in October.
Means you guys have 2 weeks to rewatch and get these questions, try some experiments, reach out if you have any questions during the meantime. The same questions I'll be going over next in the second week of November as well.
Before we go, would you recap the homework one more time for the audience?
Yes, one more time. Your homework over these next 2 weeks are to think about the 2 layers of content that you're going to need for these campaigns. First layer is 15 assets, 15 to 30 seconds, videos to get people's attention, draw your audience's attention. Think about pattern interruption. You want that video to catch their attention within those first 2 seconds. That second layer is all about education. You want to give them as much education as you can within 3 minutes, or you want to have several 3-minute videos that do it. But you don't want that information you're giving them to be general. You want whatever you feel is too valuable to tell somebody without selling it. That's what you want to give away. That's exactly what you want to have in that second layer. To build your credibility, to build your trust. And then the second task is to have your audience thought, or to draw out your audience. Find 10 pages that resonate with what your topic, what your brand does, that could be considered competition to your page. Go through those pages, comments, look at the people who are commenting the most. Once you find those people who are commenting the most on those 10 pages, start to visit their pages and see what type of consumer they are. Because that's going to be your main audience core. You want to see what type of content that they consume. And those are going to be your 2 tasks for homework. You've got 2 weeks to do them, at least. Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you all for coming out and for rewatching.
Okay, if there aren't any further questions, we are going to end session 2 on that note with all these goodies and gems that Emmanuel has been handing down to us. We so appreciate you, Emmanuel, for your time, dedication, and your knowledge and wisdom. You cannot put a price tag on knowledge and wisdom. So we definitely thank you as the Guap Foundation, as the community, the Guap community, and definitely as the Guap governors. So I would like to end this in saying that if you need us, here is our contact information over at the foundation. Again, my name is Lovey Bradley. I am the Secretary Director of the foundation. Emmanuel is the Director of Marketing on the foundation. And of course, we have our chair present. We thank you for your presence, Dee. And be looking out for this to be uploaded on the YouTube, and we will see you back in 2 weeks.